NFL draft is 21 days away, and we've got some interesting developments here about stock up and stock down for certain NFL players. Who's a rising star, who's a falling entity is going to get drafted later than he thought when he walked into the combine in March. So we're going to get into who's rising, who's falling in our video today. Let's get into it. You know, when you talk about the guys that are rising, you got to talk about the guys that are falling as well. So, a guy on my list that is had a lot of buzz going into the combine time frame and the pro day area was Trey Harris. A lot of people, because of his 6'3" frame, 210 pounds, you know, he put on a lot of interesting, unique things out there on film when he was playing at Ole Miss and catching passes from Jackson Dart, ironically, right? But what scared a lot of teams off from him is his testing. Like they thought that he was more athletic and more twitchy and more had more agility than he tested at. So I think that is an issue for some I guess you can say pro scouts to say that maybe, you know, he's not a guy that I would, you know, spend high draft capital on. So I think his stock might be down a little bit in that space. So I think that, you know, his top end speed coupled with his vertical, you know, and a few other testing numbers that people kind of, you know, hang their hat on and say that, you know, you kind of can't miss with a guy with that, you know, with a certain amount of athleticism. He can be coasting to other things, but if you have a certain amount of athleticism, I can work with you. But if you're limited in those capacities, then they might shake their head at it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and on top of the fact that, again, with him not having elite speed, you know, he has issues in certain cases, you know, especially with you know, I guess you could say very strong and prolific man cover corners that they have in the NFL, like your Patrick Surtain and Trey McDuffie. You know, he has issues with, you know, tight man coverage in certain spaces. So, and not having that, you know, quick twitchiness that he can separate easy could be a problematic for him in the league. So I think that people are kind of second guessing their value for Trey Harris in the interim. But we'll see how that things shake out. But I think that the stock might be down on him just a little bit. You got anything to add for him before we move on to the next guy?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't disagree with that, and I think every year you kind of see there's about two to three receivers that are locked up at the top. Then there's kind of this grouping of 10 guys that sort of fluctuate based on how they're testing, and there's, you know, always one or two that move to the top based on just their 40 alone, and you know, I think that's more of a testament of how the game of college football is played now, where there's just so many options every year to get a pass catcher that, you know, these guys are just being kind of, you know, examined under a microscope even more. And it's just the littlest things can drop them down despite what they've done. And, you know, I agree. Like he kind of like the guy I'm about to talk about, like it's purely their athletic testing and athletic tangibles with, you know, what you see on paper looking at them that I think is going to knock their stock or is knocking their stock right now.
Right. Well, that's a good segue. So the next guy on our list is Xavier Restrepo from Miami.
Yeah.
I definitely see why you put this guy on the list, but please tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, he was, I like I said, right in there with that grouping with Trey Harris that, you know, their combine testing and pro day testing was going to kind of predicate where they ended up falling. If you have an active X or Twitter account, like you certainly probably heard about Restrepo's pro day because damn near all of social media was bagging on the dude. I mean, you see his tangibles 5'10", 209. He's not known as, you know, he's not known as a Tyreek Hill type player. You know, he is a slot-o-matic wide receiver that can just create natural separation and, you know, kind of more of like a Wes Welker type guy, just move the ball down the field. But, you know, to go out in his pro day, run a 4.840, you know, that's tough. You know, and I'm not going to sit here and act like his speed, like his game and what he put on tape, any of that is indicated by his speed. And I will say, and I will admit, there's a total difference between track straight line speed and football speed.
Oh yeah,
So like,
definitely.
I mean, so anybody that, some guy can go run a 4 flat 40-yard dash with a combine. It does not mean he's going to be blazing past everyone on the football field, because that's
John
just,
Ross.
yeah, there's two totally different things. So I mean,
Right.
I do believe that Restrepo ultimately has much faster football speed than a 4.8 straight line 40. But, as I kind of said, talking about Trey Harris and Restrepo, I mean, we, especially in recent years in drafts, we've seen kind of this indicator that, your 40 time is a big indication of if you're getting picked in, round 1 or 2.
True.
And I think Restrepo, went into this draft as kind of the guy with a lot to prove through his testing to even be a potential, second, third round pick. And
Mhm.
I think has pretty much solidified himself as a day 3 pick at this point.
Yeah, if that, I think that
If that.
a lot of people will scratch you off the board if you, as a wide receiver, you run a 4.8. They
Yeah.
might let you slide
Especially
into
at
the tight end.
5'10.
Right, a 5'10 receiver.
5'10, 209 guy.
You're
Like,
not tall, you're not quick, you're not fast. That could last. It's a non-starter for a lot of people. They will literally scratch you off their board if you have that slow of a time. And no matter how quickly you get in and out of cuts, they just going to look at you like a slow guy that can't separate and generate,
yes.
space in the league. So I would like to believe that he's going to be a day 3 guy. If that, it just depends on what people value, and his other intangibles would determine whether or not he gets drafted on day 3 or not. But I definitely think the stock is down on him based upon his measurables. And again, it's always that issue with people that don't work at the combine, but they work at their pro day. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost like are you hiding something? Or are you not? In this case, I think he might have been hiding the fact that he didn't want everybody in the world to see his 4.840. I really think that was the issue, reason why he didn't show up at all, because I'm sure he was invited.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that's one of those things where people say you cut on the tape and he gets open, but getting open in this college game and getting open in the pro game is 2 different animals.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I definitely agree there. All right, so next guy on the list is a guy that I had my eye on that kind of, been, I guess you can say some guys have been talking about more, and he's been talking about less since his, quote unquote, coming out party in the college playoffs. It's Cam Scatterbo. 5'11", 215-pound running back. Everybody, marveling over his performances. I think it was the Peach Bowl, I believe, that he played in, that he went
Texas.
crazy. Yeah, went crazy.
Mhm.
So my issue with Cam Scatterbo has always been, the fact that he does not, again, this goes back to the whole idea of him not working out either. We hadn't really seen what he can do or can't do. And some people said it's probably smart of him not to run the 40 in the combine and do all these things, because they didn't want to, expose him to being limited in his skill set. And I think that's the issue. I think that, he is going to be looked at as a nothing but a straight line runner. His ability to his short bursts and quickness and contact balance and things of that nature off of cuts are going to be scrutinized. He's going north to south. He's, probably a problem for most people, at his size. But, you have to be more than that than to be an NFL every down back. So, for him not to have elite speed, elite agility, elite quickness, things of that nature, and just be a unit, as Alex like to refer to people as in certain cases,
Yeah.
I think that you have to tailor your expectations when it comes down to what Cam Scatterbo can or cannot be. So I think that his stock is probably falling with the likes of, the Ohio State kids, a few other people whose stocks are rising, especially at the combine. Even Brishul Tulin, his stock is rising because he blew the combine doors off with his times and his agility. So a lot of guys that are showing out, in testing, that are going to be talked about and probably get drafted ahead of Cam. But I do believe he does get drafted, but I think he might have pushed himself down because of his lack of face of time, what ultimately is going to probably be a day 3 guy, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like you said with Restrepo and with this dude, it's like, what are you hiding by not participating in all of it when
Right.
you're kind of that, uh, you know, not like unknown but unknown type of guy who like just came on the scene late, and your stock, like, you got to take advantage of that and just go.
You got to show as
And
much as you possibly can.
yeah, and again, it's I think both with receivers and running backs, like, fortunately and fortunately, depending on what side of the coin you're on, like they're pretty deep classes. So
Yes.
it's not that hard to knock your stock just on one little thing because of just the sheer amount of volume that's out there for teams to evaluate and look at.
Exactly, exactly. And I take two examples because if you look at Abdul Carter, like Abdul
Hmm.
Carter is such a freakish athlete that he doesn't have to test. Like you know exactly what you're getting when you turn the film on and you watch Abdul Carter. It's mind blowing. But again, out of the side of that short sample size of what he did in the college playoffs, it's just everything things with Cam Scotabo. So
Hmm.
that's where you may or may not hit your wagon to the idea of making him a running back in your system. So again, I just really think that he's a straight line runner. Again, we don't know exactly what he tests like, and I think that he's hiding it because he don't want to expose his limitations. And I wouldn't hitch my wagon to the idea he's going to be your bell cow for anybody's team at this point. But I do believe he has value.
He's
You know.
perfect for Andy Reid.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
Just kidding.
That's fine. That is fine. But
Scatter
yeah,
bro.
scatter, bro. So yeah, we'll see how things shake out. But I do think the stock is falling for Cam Scatterboy at this very moment. So we'll see what happens at the end of the month.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So last up on our list is a controversial
Woo!
one in this space.
Woo! Hey,
Alex
what?
has pinpointed Malachi Starks as being a stock down guy, and he has to tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let me just preface that I don't think that means. I mean, Malachi Stark's going in the first round.
Okay.
No doubt about that. Like he's definitely up there in top two, top three safeties in this draft. The reason I think his stock is dropping is, I mean, you go like he has all the pedigree. Georgia's starting safety, I think, for 3 years, like has the film, makes
Yeah.
plays on the field. But when you look at the other safeties, specifically Imanwari,
Yes.
Imanwari was the workout warrior, like crushed the combine, crushed
Mm,
his pro day. Maybe definitely didn't have the same type of film production that you would see in watching the two. But
mm,
I, like I said, with other positions and just at this draft time, like teams, some teams like fall in love with the athletic tangibles more than what they've seen on tape.
right.
And, I think just by that metric, like, he didn't do it like Malachi Starks didn't do anything bad. I mean, he had a 4.5 40, 7.263 cone drill, which is, I mean, it's not great, but it's not terrible.
Mm,
But when you look at other safeties in his class, like him and Wari, who went out and just blew everyone away with their athletic tangibles, like
right.
I think that you could end up seeing a team that decides, well, we need a safety, but I'd rather take this guy that's got all this athletic pedigree
Mm,
just to see what we get out of him out of the two. And so that's what I mean by, I think his stock's taking a hit. I don't think that sure as hell doesn't mean he's getting taken the second round.
well,
Or maybe,
depends.
it doesn't mean he's getting taken the third round or lower. Let me put it that way. How about that?
Okay.
But I think that he has gone from, that sure locked number one safety in this draft to taking a dip just because of how some other guys have performed in the athletic arena.
I like it. I like it. And I would wonder if had Xavier Watts and Kevin Winston worked out because
Hmm.
one was hurt and one was just, tired, from playing football. So they didn't decide to work out at the combine. I wonder what had happened to Malachi Stock had they worked out. Because I
Exactly.
think they would have showed up and definitely
Yeah.
pushed his stock down a little bit because everybody been buzzing about them in the athleticism. So
Hmm.
it'd be interesting
Well,
to
yeah,
see.
because you look at Imanwari, like he has all, like Malachi Starks just has the on-field experience
And
and the
and
length of tape of showing him make
yes.
plays. He's not
And
going to wow you with anything athletically, but
yes.
he's a guy that watched film, knew what he needed to do, and executed on the field. Then you
Right.
got Imanwari, who is raw, but blew you away with everything he can do athletically. And then
Yeah.
you got Watts, who's like probably the best ball hawking safety in
Yes.
the country right now, in the college football country at least,
Mhm.
and brings that component too. So it's like they all have their thing, their niche, if you will, and it's
Right.
what is the team going to ultimately value that's needing a safety and is planning to spend early draft capital on one.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like it. So we'll be interested to see if who spins the wheels on Malachi Starks and will Imawari go ahead of him. That's gonna be a good one. That's gonna be a good one. Okay. All right, man. So there it is. So we have covered the stock down in its entirety. So here's our socials. Here's our information here. And if you need to reach the squad, the gang, there's your socials there. And as always, we are definitely available through the Lockdown Divas Network, as always, through our social channels as well. So let us know how you feel about either video, our stock up video, our stock down video. And let us know in the comments how you feel. Like, comment, subscribe as always. But until the next video, that is the Real AG, and I'm Coach Divas. Until then, we'll see you when we see you. Step up and lock it down.